2026. We are going to be doing a harmonic energy update today, and we are going to be starting the first two cards in our 5-card spread for today we have here the Strength card in its reversal in combination with the Ace of Cups in its upright. Let's talk a little bit about the energy that we're currently experiencing and how it is impacting our relationship cycles. I'm going to describe this. I was saying this before we started the podcast. This is a very intriguing eclipse energy. You might be noticing this. Typically, the eclipses are extremely intense. Now, this eclipse, and one of the reasons I feel like this eclipse might not necessarily feel as intense has to do with the fact that there is the space by which the totality is occurring isn't necessarily seen. Okay, the totality of the eclipse that we currently experience was not seen by many. It was all the way out in Antarctica. And so we also see the fact that we're working through Piscean energy in the space of the eclipse. Now, eclipses don't bring out things that are not already there. They often work as amplifiers in the way that I read for the energy. So what do we see is the benefit to working through this type of energy, right? It's working through the feelings that one is not aware of, right? The spaces or the places, like this is coming out of that Aquarius season, working through, right? And I like to describe this. The beautiful thing about eclipse energy is when you're able to be objective with it instead of feeling affected by it, is you can recognize and understand the nature of nuanced circumstances or situations, being able to deep dive into something that one feels that is sometimes hard to wrap your hand around or to wrap your head around, right? So that introspection point, in a way, this is a very introspective eclipse cycle because it allows us to effectively deep dive into those parts of the emotions that sometimes feel like they elide us, right? Or they feel like they're sometimes out of our grasp or something that we can't necessarily see about the self. Now, at the same time, and I want to kind of articulate this, I was talking about this again before we started the podcast. Tomorrow, we've got Mercury retrograde season starting. This is just your daily reminder to say that not every Mercury retrograde is the same Mercury retrograde. Okay. This is much like why we identify the fact that we say that eclipses are chaotic. It's not the fact that eclipse energy is chaotic. It's chaotic because we can't predict what the energy will be to a certain extent, because when we think about the eclipses as amplifiers, they take the energy that we're currently in and they just crank it up, right? It's the space by which the chaos that we feel is actually the amplification of the energy that's already there. Now, one of the things we recognize with Mercury retrogrades is Mercury is often the space by which we want to move very quickly through things, right? Mercury is very fast energy. It's the energy that wants to kind of zip along. Now, the space by which we understand, and this is why I actually feel like this Mercury retrograde might actually be a steadying Mercury retrograde, right? Because what do we identify as happening right now with this full moon that we've got coming up in Pisces, in like that's happening in Virgo, right? It's feeling the energetic rush of Pisces, and then what do you find there? You find precision, right? In Aries. So the work that we do, right? The work that we do to be able to be precise is working through, right, the volatility of emotions that don't affect, right, that don't affect your own ability of finding energetic precision. And so when we think about this, right, when we already think about the fact that we've got this amplification that's happening here with the eclipse and all of this Piscean energy, which already creates a lot of that feeling of energetic rush or the flow state, right? And often potentially feeling some of the overwhelm that sometimes happens when we're going through those situations and circumstances, right? That ability of having Mercury retrograde, like almost slow things down, right? It's almost like it's balance. It almost creates balance when you think about it, right? Because you got the eclipse that goes forward, and then you got the Mercury retrograde that goes backwards, and it understands the torque, right? It's the energetic torque we find that helps us effectively steady situations, right? And that's why we identify, like, that is the way, right? That is how we find our own energetic precision on things. Now, this is having a different impact depending on whether you align to masculine, feminine, or where you are on the frequency cycles. And we're going to start first by talking about the energy that is in solitude. And this is effectively the world relationships, or the relationships that are currently working through the lessons that we see in the world card of the tarot, which was effectively these relationship cycles have been happening between the time of the Capricorn new moon in Capricorn season, which was around January 18th, up until the present. Center card for today's spread is, we have here the Magician card, a lot of heavy cards. We got a lot of major arcana that's already coming up in this first row that we're seeing. And what does that indicate? A lot of heavy stuff that's on. But the beautiful thing that we identify, and this is a continuation of what I was reading for yesterday, this energy is effectively helping us heal our relationship to Aries energy. And why do we effectively say that? There is a misconception on what Aries energy is, right? There's often the consideration, or the space by which we see Aries energy as combative. There is nothing combative that needs to occur in Aries, because what you often notice with mature Aries energy is coming into the state of warrior, right? And a warrior is conscientious on what they are energetically combative upon, right? The difference, right? The difference between being, right? The difference between being effectively um, argumentative, or the space by which one is constantly incensed, versus the space by which one is able to feel energetically validated in terms of what one is energetically bothered about, is to a certain extent a sign of a refined mind, right? It's not the prickliness that you bring to situations, right? You don't feel like you're in a bad mood and you make it everybody else's responsibility, but the ability by which we're effectively able to diagnose the self, right? To understand what is effectively something that we need to work on within, which is working, versus what we need to work on without, allows us the ability to effectively work through things more effectively. But I need to point this out. A lot of this energy that I'm seeing here is potentially healing, right? I've got two different modalities that I see in solitude right now, which is working through the context of understanding the difference between having a feeling of being validated in terms of how one feels, versus situations that feel like they demand complacency from us. And what do we recognize in relationality? Nothing healthy demands complacency, right? Because it's the state by which we understand, right? The state by which we understand that we work towards energetic harmony by being able to articulate upon the things we care about is how we effectively fix things. So, what we effectively see that's happening right now is, for a lot of the energy that's doing that work, building into, this is the energy that is either in solitude right now, reminding themselves or working through the space that the emotions, right? The emotions that have directions attached to them are the greatest form of protection, right? Because our emotions, this is what we talk about the wondrous power of emotions. Notice how emotions work. Emotions only fix things if they are enmeshed. Emotions can only fix things if they are enmeshed. And what do I mean by that? That our emotions have the power of fixing everything. They're incredible. Emotions can literally fix anything, unless, but only in the context by which we all share them, right? The enmeshed emotions that allow change to occur. When emotions are not enmeshed, then they need to be what we utilize to diagnose situations, right? Because the observation of recognizing the space by which I understand that our health, that when we understand that our emotions are healthy, when they have directions attached to them, then we present our healthy emotions with directions attached to them to circumstances and situations to assess if enmeshment is energetically possible, right? And in the modality by which we do that, right, we heal because it's the observation that if that isn't happening, we don't try to work to change it, right? That is what we effectively see that's healing here, right? The emotions can't fix things. The emotions are effectively presented to recognize if there is possibility of something greater occurring. And so this is why we see that these are energies potentially, because I keep on seeing there's some energy right now that potentially moved away from relationship and having to say to someone, well, what happened in that partnership? And someone being like, well, I delivered healthy emotions with directions attached to them and I met neglect. Right? I can see the energy going like, I met neglect. I met nothing effectively being affected, right? And a lot of that energy working through that, and I keep on hearing that that is the observation of healing from energetic neglect, right? The observation or the recognition point, and I keep on seeing this, like, I feel like there's a lot of energy right now in solitude healing from neglectful relationships. And the hard part with neglectful relationships is neglectful relationships are often articulated by mismatched manifestation goals, right? When we care about each other, then we care about what the emotions are asking for. We tend them. So this is what we see that's happening in these new relationships, right? They're having conversations, right? They're having the uncomfortable conversation about emotional needs, right? Understanding, right? Even healing from the fact that that feels needy. I wouldn't be surprised right now if some of this energies has a very unhealthy, like they're working on the fact that they were told that they were energetically needy. But you have to understand, right? The hard part about relationship is what you bring to a good relationship, a unhealthy relationship will articulate is a problem. We're supposed to be needy in relationship because it isn't needy, right? Here's the thing about it. Having needs is necessary. Now, the only time something is energetically needy is if the neediness constantly changes, right? If the needy is here, there, or everywhere, then yes, that is needy, right? Because it is the quality of always being in need and a need that can never be fully addressed. But when we come into the space by which we are very direct upon our needs, then you can't have someone call you needy, but often someone that doesn't want to meet your needs will say that that is exactly what you are. So I keep on seeing that for a lot of the relationships working through this right now, right? They're reaffirming to each other, right? They're reaffirming to each other that we're supposed to bring needs to relationships. What else are relationships what else are relationships for if not to have those needs met, right? Like that's what a relationship is. Now, continuing to get clarification, we're going to move into those moon relationships. Man, when I was reading for those moon relationships, how you guys doing? Oof. We got two cards coming out. Complete, and I got to point this out. Sometimes when I'm reading into these energies, the frequencies are similar. They are not similar right now. They are very, very different. Very, very different energy right now. Moon relationships, Knight of Pentacles in its reversal, in its upright with a Chariot card in its reversal. A lot of feelings coming up right now about the past. A lot of healing. A lot of healing, a lot of feelings. Always a little bit of a frustration point there, right? When you receive what you were missing, you get a lot of feelings that are related to the absence of what wasn't there. There's a lot of fast healing that's happening right now for a lot of those moon relationships. And I keep on seeing, right? It's saying to me like the hard feelings are literally evaporating in the energy of the current relationship. And why do we see that those hard feelings they are evaporating as quickly as they come up? because for a lot of the energy, I want to describe this. These are relationships. It took me a while to be able to, like, it took me forever to try to figure out what was going on here because they took so long to come together. But this is why they took so long to come together, because they were carrying integrity wounds. Why were they carrying integrity wounds? Integrity wounds are created. Integrity is when our yeses stay yeses and our nos stay nos, right? That is what integrity is. So the modality by which these energies have purpose, the energies have a deep sense of purpose. And for the purposes of this reading, the moon relationships that we're specifically speaking upon were the relationship cycles that were focusing on the lessons of the moon card, which were happening between January 18th, which was around the time that Uranus went direct, up until, the Capricorn new moon cycle that we experienced up until Uranus stationing retrograde, which was back in September. So these relationships were taking a very long time to come together. And the reason we see that they were taking so long to come together is because they were carrying wounds by which the energy had a very strong sense of purpose, but they were working through a lot of trauma related to past relationships, that even though the purpose that another person held drew someone towards them, it was also the purpose by which another person said was destroying the relationship, right? They were going through the purpose paradox that often happens when another person isn't coming to us with a sense of integrity, which is the energy that says you can't say that the thing that attracted you to me is the same thing that is keeping you away from me, right? But that's a lot of the energy that was working through that, which is why we see that they were trying to come into relationship with such a strong force field around each other, right? They were very, very cautious, having navigated wounds like that. And what are they finding? They're arriving into the relationship that does not take each other's purpose personally. They take it profoundly. They're finally in a space by which the relationship feels like it is creating the healthy firmament by which they themselves can move to their purpose with even more alacrity. And while at the same time they're moving through that point of divine celebration, there's a lot of rumination that's coming up in relationality to the experience of the past relationships where that same priority was, another person held it with a love-hate mentality, right? Something that another person felt like they idealized, but then once they were in connection with it, started to vilify. So this is why we see that for a lot of the energy working through that and recognizing that they're healing from integrity wounds is happening in relationality to counterpart energy. And that's why we see as soon as it's recognized, it immediately dissipates, because what they're finding is clarifying, but it's not requiring them to hold. Like I keep on hearing, like they're holding through it. They're not going back to something for that reason. It's just creating that deep in clarity. And it may feel like, it may feel like there's a lot of incense there, right? Like they may feel incensed, but I keep on hearing they're incensed because they're recognizing something that they could not see before. That's why I said it's evaporating, because it's incense. Yeah, okay. While we're moving into the temperance relationships, and for the purposes of our reading, the temperance relationships were coming together between the time that Uranus went retrograde, which was September 6th, up until the solstice period that we experienced this summer, which was around June 21st of last year. Clarification between that strength card in its reversal with the Ace of Cups in its reversal. Upright. One card to clarify. Temperance in its reversal. Beautiful. I love I love that we go to read for the temperance energy and then the temperance card immediately appears. So let's talk a little bit about, what are we seeing a bit with this temperance energy right now? It's a lot of snappiness. I see this energy right now very much already moving through a lot of the work that we see that's going to be occurring with that Pisces moon in Virgo, which is like when a lot of things are happening, you get more precise, right? You get more focused. They're just working on hitting the beats is what I keep on seeing. And I want to describe that a lot of the beauty that I'm seeing in these relationships, and this has a little bit to do with that Gemini energy, because the moon's in Gemini right now. Like I keep on hearing, they're working through, they're syncopating. And why are they effectively syncopating right now? because they're working through a lot of the things that we see that the other two frequency cycles are going through, which is the space by which they see the fact that both, like, they recognize and identify around both that there's a lot happening. And when we see a lot happening and we're able to syncopate, then we don't, like I keep on hearing, we don't necessarily wait, we just activate, right? They're trying to get as many things done. But I keep on hearing they're trying to get as many things done for the purpose of being able to be supportive to one another. So I just keep on seeing that that's a lot of the work that we see, because it's like they're navigating a lot of this energy of the eclipse, but working into, I keep wondering, like, just working into, like base accomplishments, just like things on the checklist, right? Like there's a lot of that type of energy there. Now continuing to get clarification between the Ace of Cups in its upright and the Magician card in its upright. Can I get one card to clarify, please? Clarification coming through right now with a 10 of Swords in its upright. Let's talk a little bit about this energy that we're seeing right now for the energy in solitude. I think it's really intriguing because I feel like what I'm identifying here is a lot of closing of unhealed, unhealthy energetic cycles. Now, I'm trying, like, the one thing I want to identify, and this is something that we sometimes see, and I kind of said, kind of get ready for this. When Neptune and Saturn move into Aries, it can often create the state by which we experience what feels akin to us, like especially when Saturn moves out of Pisces into Aries, it can create almost like a pseudo Saturn return moment, right? The feeling that something is changing very quickly, or we're going through a very fast maturation process. And the one thing I keep on identifying about this is working through, right? Like I see a lot of the energy right now, and this is what is kind of beneficial, right? The benefit that we see with an eclipse of this nature, right? And I want to describe this especially with the fact that the totality was all the way in a space by which nobody could see the totality of this particular eclipse. It works upon the difference between the between the the stated change versus the active change is everything that I'm identifying there. And what do we effectively mean by that, right? I see a lot of that energy working through situations and circumstances. Some of this energy in solitude, it's not the fact that the past isn't coming back towards them, right? It's not the fact that there may be someone from the past trying to come towards them to see if there's something that they can make work. But I keep on getting, and we were talking about this, right? We were talking about this heavily a few weeks ago, right? The best relationship you'll ever experience will make you feel things that you've never felt before, right? An energy that often articulates that one desires to move towards relationship, but then says once they're in one that they can't navigate the intensity, right? Like I literally see situations by which there's some energy in solitude healing because a relationship was going very, like it was going, like it was getting very intense, right? Which is a good thing. Like literally someone being like, this is great, it's intense. And another person saying, I can't handle the intensity, right? And that's why I keep on seeing that some of this energy is navigating situations with a sense of devastation, right? Because what happens when another person is experiencing the intensity of a relationship and then they say, I can't handle it, it's too intense, and they move away from it, right? The intensity has diminished. And then someone will come back and say, I'm ready to try again. And someone says, of course you're ready to try again because you're only steady in the beginning of relationship. You've articulated the quality and condition that you can't handle the intensity of being within one, right? So it's often the energy, there's energy in solitude that is recognizing energy that's always in a constant state of readiness, but not able to navigate the steadiness, right? It's not enough to be ready. You have to be steady, right? You have to be, it's got to be ready. This is why we say ready and steady are the two qualities of moving towards a manifestation goal, because readiness is like, is always, is Aries energy, right? Readiness is like starting, it's like the starting bell, right? Steadiness is being able to hold the condition that is not readiness. It's being able to be existing within something, right? And so I literally see energy that's navigating the fact that they were trying to get steady with someone, and someone said, I can't handle the intensity of going steady. And then they left, and then the energy is coming back and going, I'm ready. And being like, of course you are. You're always ready, but you're not steady, right? You're always ready. You're always ready, but you're not steady. The readiness is not the problem. It's the steadiness that we need to work on, right? And this is what we often see, right? This is what we often see between the change between Pisces to Aries, right? That's Pisces to Aries. Pisces to Aries is readiness and steadiness, right? You gotta be readiness and steadiness, and the qualification of the lesson that's coming through some of the energy in like, and that's what I keep on seeing, like literally some energy that's trying to start a new relationship, right? And in the midst of them trying to start a new relationship, they've got someone coming back going, I'm ready again. I'm ready again. I'm ready again, and being like, yes, because that is what you occupy. You're constantly in a state of readiness, because if you're not ready to feel the new emotions, this is why we talk about emotional intelligence isn't understanding emotions. It's having the capacity to feel new ones, right? If you're not in the space by which you can't handle the capacity to feel new emotions, you're constantly in the state of readiness, but you're not securing into the state of steadiness. So that's painful, because I see some energy that's like, someone literally being like anticipating it, somebody coming back and being like, I'm ready again. And someone being like, you dear thing, of course you are, right? Like always in the space of ready again, but it's not about the readiness, it's about the energetic steadiness. So I feel like that's hard, because I either see energy that's working through that right now, potentially trying to heal in solitude in the space of another person trying to come back towards them and trying to articulate the difference between ready and steady, or energy that's building into connection, explaining the quality by which they feel like they're constantly in a space with another that they're working to heal from, by which it's on, like, this is what happens with on again, off again energy, right? Someone who is addicted to the ready part of a relationship, and just recognizing and identifying it and holding grief about it, and almost potentially articulating to each other the fact that they're anticipating that that energy is going to try to come back in, right? They're like preparing each other for it, and they're like literally looking at each other being like, I know, I've been there, right? Continuing to get clarification between the Magician card and the Knight of Pentacles in its upright. I like those two cards together, man. Look at that moon energy. Magician with a Knight of Pentacles. Clarification. 4 of Cups in its reversal, right? And this is what I said. Like, you want to talk about that Aries energy? This is why those moon relationships are going through a celebration moment. No hard feelings, right? Hard feelings, no hard feelings. I literally see like the hard feel, like all hard feelings, no hard feelings. That's all I keep on seeing here. It's like the hard feelings come up, gone. Hard feelings, gone. They're just coming up. They're going up. They're coming up so fast, and they're being swept away just as quickly, because the observation of them finally being in a relationship where their purpose is not being seen. I keep on hearing they're finally in a relationship where someone isn't addressing their purpose as third party energy. They're saying they are finally, they're like literally singing praises right now, because they're finally in a situation by which their purpose is not being identified as third party energy. It's the energy that sees the purpose as profound, not third party. And that's why I see the energy going, oh my goodness. Like, it's like the energy. It's the energy that's finally experiencing that, and now they're able to see, right, the relationships that lack the integrity, the integral aspect of holding the purpose profoundly. Because when we don't share purpose, unified purpose, or a unified respect for purpose, we identify purpose as third party. We look at the purpose as getting in the way of the relationship instead of understanding the sacredness by which we hold each other's purposes profoundly. Lot of feelings there, but also, like, it's the awareness by which they're able to find the steadiness as we continue forward. Now, for those temperance relationships, clarification between Knight of Pentacles and the Chariot energy in its reversal, Page of Swords in its reversal. The one thing I want to describe that's potentially happening right now for the temperance relationships, it's a tender time. They're going through an expansion process. And what I keep on seeing is they're changing. They're changing in positive ways, right? And I keep on seeing the changes that they're effectively bringing towards things, right? They're navigating the quality and condition by which they themselves are changing. And I keep on seeing that, or even the way that others are changing around them, right? And so I keep on getting, it feels it feels like a fast maturation process for a lot of that energy that is deep within divine union right now, because I can almost see the fact by which, and this is what we can kind of recognize that is happening, is I feel like there's something there by which the energy feels like they can't work fast enough. And I think that that's what is effectively changing, which is the energy that's almost saying perhaps instead, and this is what I meant about the benefit of a Mercury retrograde during a Pisces eclipse, right? But a Mercury retrograde in a Pisces eclipse season, and I know this is going to sound a little strange, is the space by which one feels saying, when like if instead of going fast enough, what if I went slower? Is what I keep on hearing, like, what if I went slower? But this is what I mean, right? Because it's not allowing the self to get frustrated in terms of trying to do everything. But try I keep on hearing, setting a healthy pace for the self, right? Identifying and recognizing, what I keep on hearing, like, how can I, instead of being faster, looking at situations and saying, how can I be more effective, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised right now if that energy is working upon conversations on efficiency and innovation, right? The observation of being able to find, right? I keep on hearing exquisite systems allow us to do effective things, right? I keep hearing everything can be done, right, if you find an exquisite system that allows one to be able to do it. So I feel like I see that energy going, I am like they're on the hunt for an exquisite system, is what I keep on seeing. Like, that's that eclipse energy, right? They're like, I am looking for the exquisite system. So, and I think that that's helping because they're not being so hard on themselves, right? They're not trying to move faster. They're trying to move more exquisitely. Now, continuing to get clarification between the Temperance card in its reversal and that Ten of Swords in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Two cards coming out. It's Pisces season. Ooh, look at those two. Moving back into the energy and solitude, we've got here the Hierophant and the Nine of Cups, right? That's a continuation of what we just saw with the Temperance energy. How can I build a better bridge, right? How can I build a better bridge? This is nice though, it's interesting too, and I like this because we must have an alignment day, because often the space by which we see the energy deep within divine union connecting into the message of the energy in solitude, we start seeing that there's like alignment days that we often come into. And so it feels like there's something, even though as these relationships are going through different things, there's a lot of unified alignment in relationality to working through, right? Like again, like Pisces moon with like a Virgo full moon in Pisces season, how can I build a better bridge, right? There's, like, faster, like, you can't there's a limit to how fast you can do something, but you can always look at ways to make more systems more exquisite, is what I keep on seeing. And so I feel like that's something really important because, and I wanna stress this, there's an argument that's happening right now for energy in solitude. And I wanna describe, there are some contra moments that are coming into conclusion. And what do I mean by a contra moment, right? I often describe when I'm reading a contra moment in the modality by which we're going through two different paths, but they're going in different directions. And sometimes you see this when energy is not in alignment, right? The space by which another person is being perpetually patient, right? And another person is perpetually learning, but the space by which another person, every time a person is patient and another person takes their patience for granted, they become, right? They become less energetically invested, right? The modality of feeling like the patience is taken advantage upon. So what we see that's potentially has happened for some of the, and every time another person goes through an energetic process by which they damage something and then they're able to repair it, they feel the fact that their confidence in something grows more. So what we're effectively seeing right now is there may be some energies in solitude that are healing from a moment that has become too contra in order to be able to perpetuate, which is the space by which, again, somebody who effectively moved away from something the way that they always do, with the expectation that another person would be there, right? Would be there for them to energetically return to. But the modality by which another person has felt that their own patience was taken advantage so much to such a point that they don't feel available towards it anymore, right? I feel like that's potentially what we're seeing as it relates to some of the healing that's occurring in this moment, right? Another person saying to somebody, "We always do this," and another person saying, "That's what the problem is," right? The observation of someone that says, "But this is our," like somebody trying to say, "This is our, this is just, this is our energetic cycle," and another person saying, "I never signed up for this cycle." Right? Like somebody saying like, "I never, this is not the condition," right? Somebody saying, "This is not the condition." You see that as I pull, like exactly. You see that like as the plug got pulled on, as I accidentally pulled the plug on my mic, right? This is not the condition. This isn't healthy, right? Because I keep on hearing someone who's constantly in the state of readiness instead of steadiness, and the observation of someone who always says like, "Oh, I care about you so much because every time I go away, you're here," and another person saying, "That is not the type of relationship that I am aspiring for." Right? It's not, I keep on hearing someone say, "It's not romantic, it's tragic." Right? What you're seeing as romance, I'm seeing as tragedy. And so that's the modality by which we see that there may be some deep separations, like some fundamental separations that are occurring right now in the clarification of someone observing someone saying, "Isn't this romantic?" And another person saying, "I can't believe you see anything about this romantic. It's profoundly tragic." Right? Like what you identify as romance has been the tragedy of my experience, of my existence. And the modality by which another person articulates that is allowing for a lot of that fundamental separation to occur. At the same time, new relationships that are coming together under those mutual circumstances, recovering from moments or modalities that felt like they were relationships that were constantly built upon the hope that they would improve, but never seeing the hope evolve into hearth, right? When we have a healthy relationship, the hope turns to hearth, right? Which is the excitement of having a relationship that becomes the home that we build into. So I keep on seeing that that's a lot of the energy that's potentially articulating upon past counterpart as being a hopeless romantic. Because what do you see with energy that's hopeless romantic? There is energy that is addicted to the hope of relationship, but is never satisfied at the hearth of the relationship. Right? So that's the energy that's almost working through that. And they're working through that together. Now, continuing to get clarification between the 10 of swords in its upright in combination with the 4 of cups in its reversal. Can I get one card to clarify, please? Center card for today's spread. Got the Knight of Wands in its upright. I like this center row. I like this center pillar we got happening right now in this read. This is nice. We got a lot of wand energy. We got a lot of wand energy, and this is identifying specifically to the moon energy, the moon relationships, right? Because this is what they feel like to each other, right? They feel like they found each other's wish fulfillment, which is the energy, and this is beautiful because what are they saying to each other? We don't need to have the same purpose. We just need to understand the power of having one, right? The modality of recognizing the shared sense of purpose doesn't require one to have the same purpose, but when we have purpose, then we hold each other's purposes sacredly. Right? And this is why the energy is going through a modality of elation because they finally feel like they're going through a relationship where another person isn't speaking upon their purpose as though it were third party. They hold each other's purposes equally in sacral energy, which is allowing them to effectively move towards their purpose with an alacrity that they've never experienced before. A lot of joy there, but also a lot of emotions that are coming up but so it may be feeling very surreal because they've got a lot of emotions that are coming up, a lot of feelings about the past, but as soon as the feelings come up, like they're gone just as quickly. Continuing for the energy deep within divine union, clarification between that 4 of cups in its reversal and the page of swords in its reversal. We have here the 5 of pentacles in its upright. So let's talk a little bit like the temperance energy right now. The thing I keep on seeing, I feel like there's a lot of compassion that the energy deep within divine like the nice thing about this is I feel like a lot of the energy deep within divine union right now is making very compassionate choices for the self, right? And I want to describe that. Compassionate choices. Um when we make compassionate choices for ourselves, how another person receives our compassionate choice tells us everything we need to know about how they care about us, right? And also how they care about the self. Because it's the space by which I keep on saying the thing with these temperance energies is they work tirelessly, right? We saw this. The reason they were coming together in temperance energy is mutual. The priority of those relationships was everything is possible so long as the work is mutual. But I also see that that energy has the tendency to do heavy lifting for others, right? And that's what I meant. You remember when we were talking about the enmeshment, the emotions that are necessary in order to allow things to become better? These relationships are getting better at being able to tell the difference between the opportunities that are well enmeshed, which is the mutual energy, the space by which they put their energy to things, and they see energy that works in the same collaboration with it, right? The energy that is enmeshing or the energy that works in that same space versus the situations and circumstances by which others are trying to demand that they do all of the heavy lifting, is what I keep on seeing. Right? And that's why this is how I see that the energy is being compassionate to each other, right? Because they're articulating, I keep on hearing that they're saying to each other, healthy relationships equally lift. Everybody does their part to energetically lift something. And often the space by which we recognize that another energy is asking us to do everything, that is the condition by which it's okay to depart from things, right? That is exactly the modality by which it's okay to depart from things because it should not require, right? It should not require one to do everything in the modality of being in something healthy, right? Equal torque. Like and that doesn't mean, and this is what we recognize, right? Equal torque, right? You find torque in healthy relationship. And it doesn't mean that torque is always found in the same thing, right? We always have different torque in relationship, right? I might bring something here, you might bring something there. Everybody brings some torque, and what do we have? Next thing you know, something's in the air, right? It brings the space by which we're able to do something. But the shape of trauma is often articulated by energy that doesn't want to do anything, but puts all of the weight on another person, right? The negligence by which energy says, oh, I just assume someone else will do it. And in the modality by which another person, right? It's the same thing that we saw that was happening in terms of the energy in solitude working to heal, right? The energy that says, "Oh, I appreciate you so much," and being like, "I don't need appreciation, I need help," right? Like the space by which when we care about each other, we don't use our hands for applause. We use our hands to get in there, right? We use our hands to get the work done. So we see that that's a lot of the energy that's working upon, right? Working upon the sensitivity in relationality to how others, right? I keep on hearing the refinement of appreciation, but not just the refinement of appreciation, the refinement of collaboration, right? Appreciation is nice. Collaboration is better because it's the modality by which another person collaborates that allows something to become incredible. So we see that that's a lot of the energy doing that work. And even as they're doing that work, right, the counterparts are supporting each other and articulating upon recognizing or identifying the quality between collaboration and negligent appreciation. Collaboration and negligent appreciation, continuing to get clarification between the Hierophant, the Nine of Cups, and the Knight of Wands in its upright. Can I get one card to clarify, please? Moving back into the energy in solitude, we have here the Three of Cups in its upright. Now, what do we see with that Three of Cups? We've got a lot of cups energy here. And I like this because this is a continuing conversation on the value and the power of enmeshment, right? When we're often working through, right, when we take enmeshed approaches to things, then we understand that everybody does something different. Right? Everybody does their own joyful part. And when everybody does their own joyful part, something becomes incredible in the process. And this is why comparison is ridiculous, right? Comparison is literally the death knell of anything beautiful, right? Because when you're working into attunement, right? I want you to think about the space by which you hear something harmonic. When you listen to something harmonic, is everybody playing the same instrument? No, that sounds terrible. Okay, it sounds terrible. Like, like everybody's just like everybody playing like no, that does not sound good, right? And that's why comparison is absurd because when you're doing one thing, you're like, why aren't you doing it like this? And be like, because it's not harmonic that way, right? We shouldn't be holding each other to each other's standards. We should be attenuating to what we all effectively bring to things. And when we are attentive, then we attenuate, we understand, and this is what we mean by alignment, right? Alignment is understanding the beautiful power of attunement. And attunement is the space by which we don't have to all do everything the same way. We don't have to think the same way. But when we're all pulling in the right direction, then it doesn't matter the way by which we do it, so long as the intention, right? So long as the stated intention in the right direction is pure. And you can tell when something is purely attuned because it is not energetically discordant. And often, here's the funny thing, right? Discordant energy is often energy that's trying to do the same exact thing as everyone else. It's mimicry, right? Discordant energy mimics. Attuned energy listens. Okay. And so this is why comparison is absurd because the modality by which, right? The modality by which we take things personally is the space by which we say, well, if I have to do it, why can't they do it? Because they're attuning. Because we don't need everybody doing what you're doing, right? What does that even mean, right? It's a space by which it's absurd. And that's why when somebody gets all up in their feels, right? Somebody will literally be doing something exquisite and then they'll be upset because others aren't doing it in the same way, saying like, but you're the exquisite. Like it's the exquisite energy. So when we recognize that, then we don't get upset. We don't look at each other, right? We just listen. We recognize what we need to bring, right? And we ask a question. And sometimes we're energetically directive. So I keep on seeing that for a lot of the energy doing that work, right? That observation right? It's the sense of it's the sense by which we try to bring forth our own energetic contribution to things. And so I keep on seeing the reason that this is coming through so much right now for the energy in solitude, as I told you, some of this energy in solitude is healing from negligent partnership, right? And what is often the sound that one experiences in negligent partnership, right? Oh, you're just not really showing up for me. Right? But I keep wondering, the lack of the amorphous lack is often what you'll hear in a negligent situation. And what is the amorphous lack? It's interesting, right? Because when another person is amorphously lacking, they'll usually say something is missing, right? But they'll never articulate what it is, and they're failing to recognize that what's missing is them, right? What's missing is them. It's their own intention. It's the space by which they look at things to satisfy instead of looking as to how they can effectively flourish into them. And this is why we talk about the fact that there is no relationship on this earth that will fix your lack space. And in fact, you will find the best relationship. If you bring a lack space into a good relationship, you will ruin the relationship with the lack space. Because it's a space by which you have to say to yourself, is that lack space you're feeling something that you're just feeling for the first time, or have you always felt that way? Because if so, it's not the relationship that is causing the lack space. The lack space call is coming in from inside the house of the self, right? And so this is why we see that some energy right now is having to navigate the space by which they're trying to heal from a relationship by which another person hasn't healed their lack space. Which is what all they experience from them is lack, right? When they're away from them, all I can do is think about you. I'm in love with my lack. Oh, you're not here and I want you so much. Of course you do. Of course you do. You're in love with your lack space, but then you're in the relationship. This is just not hitting. It's just not hitting the way it used to. I don't know what's happening. I feel like something's missing. I feel like something's missing. Of course it is. You're in love with your lack space. So then they go away and then they go, oh, I'm missing you again, right? And when somebody recognizes the fact that energy can be addicted to their lack space, right? Then it's the energy that says, of course, like that's the quality and condition of a relationship with someone who is addicted to their lack space, which is the space by which everything they do, right? They're in a relationship. They are in a very invested relationship with chasing after the feeling of yearning. Yearning's a powerful drug, right? An energy that is constantly in the space by which they're looking for a relationship, but then they feel unsatisfied when they're in one, and then they go away, and then they say that they're addicted to a person. That is someone that is completely intoxicated with the yearn, right? The yearn is an urn. There's nothing there that can flourish. And the more that we're able to recognize that, the more that we're able to understand that within us, we start to fill that with things. And it's the wildest thing ever. You start filling it with things and suddenly your life starts to flourish. And suddenly you don't look to relationship to fix the yearn, but you bring the fulfillment with you into the partnership. And the reason I keep on seeing this is for a lot of the relationship, they're literally having to explain the quality of desiring a partnership with someone and saying the relationship is failing because it's all hope and no hearth, right? It's always someone articulating upon the fact that they're almost ready, but they're never fully ready. They're always articulating upon the fact that they're feeling very they're almost close to solving the ennui. But the ennui is not something that goes away. The whole idea of ennui is it always feels like you're just about to heal it, right? And when you recognize that that is the condition of it, then you stop allowing it to prevent everything that is exquisite in one's own life, right? This is why we talk about good is better than done. But the observation of recognizing that there's always a feeling of imperfection, even as we're moving towards perfection, it doesn't go away. We just make peace with it. And so I see that this is a lot of the new relationships that are coming together with energy that has worked to make peace with their ennui, continuing to get clarification between the Knight of Wands in its upright and the Five of Pentacles in its upright. One card to clarify, moving towards those moon relationships again. Boom, 10 of Wands in its reversal. Card's been coming up a lot right now. This is I mean, I don't re I mean, like, I wanna read for the moon relationships right now, but I feel like I see a lot of these moon relationships hitting an experience of elation right now, right? And the reason we see a lot of that energetic elation that's potentially occurring is because the energy is going through equal parts elation and celebration. So effectively the feeling, right? I told you, the recognition of understanding that they're finally in relationship with energy that does not see their purpose as third party, right? The observation of another person who holds purpose with the same esteem that they themselves do, that is allowing them to move towards their purpose breakneck speed, right? Like just like I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this energy is potentially like I wouldn't be surprised if this is the type of energy where you're noticing a lot of very fast like relationships that one minute they weren't there and now there's a proposal, or now like they're just like they're like it's like one lock it in. Because I told you, the reason we see and this is what we mean, like, these are not spontaneous partnerships that are occurring. These are relationships by which they're feeling, right? They're feeling the profound joy of finally being in a partnership by which another person holds their purpose sacredly, right? Does not articulate the fact that the purpose brought them to them, and now the purpose is standing the way and standing in the way of the relationship. So that's why we see that for a lot of energy, like that expedience is potentially bringing in a lot of that energetic rush that we're identifying there. Final card for today's spread, moving back towards those temperance relationships, clarification between our 3 of Cups with the 10 of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our 6 of Swords in its upright. I got to talk a little bit about these temperance relationships right now because what we're effectively seeing, the thing I want to identify with a lot of these temperance relationships is there's a lot of, I want to describe it as there's a lot of healing that's occurring there. And a lot of that healing is coming through as a result of working through old wounds right now. Right. And what do we identify? Like the state by which we work through old wounds. And I want to describe this. A lot of this, these, when I describe these temperance relationships, they don't do things. They don't do things for applause, right? They've got a very inherent sense of rightness, is what I keep on seeing, right? The space by which they try to energetically show up is the space by which they identify that that is not. I keep remembering when we have a sense of desire to show up, we don't do that conditionally, right? We do that from within. And so I keep on seeing that for a lot of the energy that is effectively working through those experiences, um, the space by which I keep on seeing this is a very precise time. I see a lot of this energy that is feeling the space of having to kind of focus and lock in. And that's what I keep on getting because I feel like I see the energy, the temperance energy, focusing and locking in. And it's either making or breaking the relationships outside of partnership, right? Because it's the space by which you see another person that's trying to lock in or trying to do something in a way that they haven't before. And the space by which when another person sees and remember when I said like this is what I meant about the alignment day. Remember how I said the shape by which the moon relationships are healing because they're recognizing energy in the past that had a lack of integrity. The same quality by which another person said that they desired something is what they identified as the source, as the problem of the relationship. This is the energy that says that when another person sees us concentrating, right, the energetic respect that they build towards it tells us everything we need to know about them, right? The observation of effectively helping each other succeed is the space by which I keep wondering, the sound of success is giving someone space, is what I keep on hearing. And so I feel like there's something about that message that feels like the counterparts are giving to each other. which is the gift of space that we give one another that articulates the point of care. And I feel like this is the energy that is often works very carefully in protecting the space of each other. So this is why they're almost articulating to one another and saying, be conscientious in relationality to another, like to how others energetically respect what it energetically takes for you to energetically work through things is what I keep on seeing, because a lot of that work I keep on seeing, it's very interesting. I told you, like, especially with that temperance energy, right? It's like, and I keep on hearing the energy almost say, and be ready for energy to take, be ready for energy, like, to take that personally if they're not taking it profoundly, right? Like the space by which another person, like it requires the space of not being hard on the self. If another energy is working into the space by which they refuse to acknowledge or understand that, I feel like that's a lot of the energy that says like don't it might hurt, but don't take it personally, because it's almost articulating upon the empathy, like pay attention to the empathy is what I keep on hearing. Bottom of the deck, yeah, Ace of Pentacles, right? It's like the Ace of Pentacles, bottom of the deck says, pay attention to the empathy, right? And the empathy that we energetically bring to things is the understanding of the things that happen outside of the self, right? It's not the space by which we're overly, you'll notice this, like often those who like get too focused on the self, like, they only see things in terms of the hurdle that it's creating, right? And so when we build into, and this is what the thing about it, when we build in, patience is hard, right? Because sometimes we're being patient, and patience is often the space by which we have to have faith in the things that we're patient upon, right? That's what's so hard about patience, right? Patience is vulnerable, right? Patience is the most vulnerable thing because it requires us to have faith in things. But that's the beautiful thing about having patience. Patience does not mean waiting, right? Patience means you put power towards what you are faithful towards. And when you heal your relationship to patience like that, right? When you say patience and waiting have never been the same thing, right? Patience is sacred when we think about the fact that patience is what is the activation of what we put our faith towards, right? And we can activate as we're being patient. Like, what are you doing right now? Oh, I'm putting my faith here. What? Oh, is anything happening? No, but I'm continuing to put my faith here, right? I'm actively putting my faith here. I'm actively putting my faith here, right? Because our faith is the hope that something can occur. So when we're building into that space, right, we don't get angry, right? We always recognize that everything we put our faith in helps, right? Helps that grow. And sometimes it grows silently, right? Sometimes it feels like it stagnates. That's okay. Put your faith in a little bit, put your faith here now. Put your faith here, right? There's a million different places that we can put our faith as we move towards a direction. And when we recognize that, then we don't look, right? We don't look at things that we're waiting on with a sense of aggravation. We look at it as a cumulative process, right? A little bit of faith here, a little bit of faith there, a little bit of faith here, right? And then often the space by which something begins to flourish is all of those modalities or those moments by which the places that we put our faith, right? Oh, I forgot. I forgot to put I forgot I put some faith there. Oh, look, there it is, right? It starts coming up around us in ways that we couldn't imagine. And that's what's so beautiful about it. But we have to have compassion for ourselves as we navigate those processes. So make sure, right, especially with an eclipse like this, if you're feeling frustrated, take that frustration and move it into faith towards something that is energetically important, right? Don't let the frustration flounder you, because when you react from frustration, you flounder, right? But when you move the frustration into faith, you flourish. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and receiving it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way that you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my site. So I encourage you to do it there. A couple of updates before we move into personal readings today. First and foremost, thank you to everybody who participated in our recent class on the Sword Suite. The Sword Court cards. We'll be having our next class on Thursday. Thursday, March 19th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be continuing our studies into the tarot with a focus on the sword court cards. If you want to take, blah, blah, blah. If you would like to take a part in that tarot class program, all you need to do is head on over to my stack and become a paid subscriber. Your paid subscription to my stack is your ticket of entry into our live classes each and every month. As a monthly subscriber, you will have access to over 9 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library class archive. Now, it's not necessary to catch up. I'll be giving you an update on everything we've studied prior to beginning the next class, but the materials are there for you to receive as you're ready to receive it. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything we've learned and studied thus far. And if you become a founding member, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, you'll also have access to over 20 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library class archive, as well as the opportunity of receiving a complimentary mentorship class with me if you are inclined to receive one. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. Don't let your lack of experience or your robust experience prevent you from joining us in these classes. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my stack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings or services. I also post my mystic meditation articles there, which give you updates on everything we've been seeing energetically in the cards on a lunation cycle. I'm going to be releasing one shortly on this full moon in Pisces that we've got coming up soon. I also want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for any of my students seeking a more personalized educational experience with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason, as those classes are focused on each individual's personal spiritual goals and journey work. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series, weekly or biweekly, as your schedule permits. Also, for my students seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, again, weekly or biweekly, as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. And I'm also very happy to offer dream interpretation readings, which you can purchase per dream or as a series. If you purchase a series, I would encourage you to start to keep a dream journal, as we will meet weekly or biweekly with that journal and utilize the tarot to understand the key themes and messages coming towards you in the dream space. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again on Monday.